Hello and welcome everybody. Good to see y'all. Thank you for joining us. Hope you all had an awesome weekend. I'm here with the one and only DeltaTangoMike today. We're going to be doing some vector illustration. DTM, how you doing?
I am doing always well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Thanks for joining us. Before we jump on into it, I just want to give everyone a quick reminder. We do have the daily creative challenges going on. We have the Photoshop, Illustrator, and XD challenges. We just had the Photoshop with Voodoo Val. We got Andrew Hockrattle with the Illustrator challenges coming up next, so definitely stay tuned for that. Also, if you're watching over on YouTube, come join us over on Behance. That's where we'll be able to see the chat, get all your questions. And I also want to say hey to everyone in the chat. It's good to see everybody. We see Lucky, Gareth, Bliss, Annika, Wade Acuff, our moderator today. Odari, good to see you. Gareth, Biola, RB, everyone, good to see you. Thanks for joining. And if anyone doesn't know you, DeltaTangoMike, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're going to be working on today?
Yes, if you don't know me, you should ask somebody. I am DTM, DeltaTangoMike. You can always find me anywhere on the internet, DeltaTangoMike. I am a 2D illustrator who likes to draw characters. I like drawing people and things that look like people. And here's an example of what the type of people I like to draw. Popular characters, iconic characters. And most recently, I started a Scully NFT series called the Scully series. And it's your favorite iconic characters as a skull. And so, of course, there goes Darth Vader and a whole bunch of others. So I really, at the very basic level, I love to draw. So catch up with me in my streams when you can.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah. So what are you going to be working on today for us?
So today I'm going to work on a banner mural. It's a big mural that I was commissioned to work on for this wall right here. As you can see, it's a very, I won't say ugly, but it's not what they want on the wall. And so I was commissioned to draw or paint it. And instead, what I wanted to do was to create a big mural in Adobe Fresco and Illustrator that I can then print out very, very big. It's 36 feet long by 8 feet tall. And so I wanted to do in vector because when I work with vector, I'm able to like get in really into details. And because vector, it can scale to whatever size we want. And so with that in mind, I chose to work with Fresco, and that's what I'm going to share with you guys today. So let's go ahead and get started. Yes.
So this is going to be like a banner printed and hung over the wall as opposed to a mural painted directly on it. Is that what you're doing?
Right, exactly. And it's actually a vinyl print, a large vinyl print, and it's going to have grommets and we're going to screw them or nail them. I'm not sure. It's going up on the wall this weekend. It's this weekend. So I'm very excited to see it myself in real life.
Have you ever like had anything printed that scale before?
No, never, nothing that big. I've actually worked in projects where you create wraps, car wraps. And so I worked in projects where we had to create a wrap for big trucks, big, large trucks. And so I've done like 3 or 4 of those. And so, but I never got to see them up close to see what the final result is like. So, yeah, so this is going to be the first time. I'm very excited about it. I already seen the proof. So I saw the proof.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah. And it was scary because I needed to go ahead and do that, you know, so I can tell whether or not this is what I want. This is how, if the colors are going to match, or even if the quality of my lines and detail is going to show through. So it's stressful, but it's fun.
Yeah. I mean, I've done so little printing of my own work. I'm just so digital, I guess. But
Hmm.
when I have printed in the past, it's always super cool to see something like that in a physical sense. So I can't imagine seeing something that's like, car wrap size or
Right.
banner wall size. Like that's got
Hmm.
to be pretty neat to see.
Yeah, and like you're a digital artist, very talented, amazing skills. There's many artists like that who we work in digital a lot, and so you get used to seeing your artwork on phone screens, tablets, computers, but it's nothing like seeing it right here, feeling it, touching it, and be like, "Oh, this looks amazing!" in something that you can carry around and see it in the physical, or even shirts. Like I got my Adobe Max shirt on right now.
Oh,
And
nice.
so and so it's like, yes, you want to see your work. You want to see it in other formats besides the place where you first created it in.
Yeah, definitely.
So my process, and I'm just gonna hop in. Please ask any questions. Anybody out there on Behance, thank you for joining us. Please ask questions. So Sam can tell them to me because I'm gonna sit down and draw and explain my process. And
Yeah, for
so,
sure. If you
cool,
guys
cool.
have any questions, let me know and I'll field them over to Delta Tango Mike for you guys.
Word up. So first steps is always to just get started with the drawing and the sketch. And so right now I brought in these two images, but basically what I like to start with is a quick sketch layout sketch of what I'm going to do. And so when I was told, when I was given the chance that that I can draw something for that wall, I was like, okay, number one is, what is the theme? What are they looking for? And is that something that I'm interested in drawing? And as I hear those things, I see where it fits in my own art. And so a lot of the art that I draw, it has a comic and fine art mixed in with Aztec art because I'm born and raised in East LA. My parents are from Mexico. I lived in Mexico. So I'm very much immersed in the Mexican culture and traditions and mythology. And I like to show that in my work. And so the first things that come to me when anybody says they want some art from me, I say, well, it's going to be Aztec. Uh, and then because of the size, and I didn't want to sit out there on the wall for 2 weeks painting, I said, okay, I want it to be vector. So the first things first is to imagine the wall. Then what are going to be my elements? And so I said to myself, I want. Okay, so the theme is renacimiento y vida, life and rebirth. That is this in Spanish what I decided to call my piece. And the theme is reflections of change. That's the whole art installation happening here in Atlanta in an area we call Midtown. And so as I hear those words and what it means, first things that come to me is that I need some goddesses here. I need the death goddess here and life goddess there, so that it has that life and rebirth theme. I want something in the background that goes in this direction, something in the background that goes in that direction, kind of the yin and yang, right? The constant flow of change. Then I want a centerpiece. I want something here in the center. And so first things that come to mind, if it's Aztec, it's going to be the Oyin. The Oyin means also change, but it also stands for the fifth sun. So according to Aztec mythology, this is the fifth era of humankind, and so it's called the fifth sun. And if you're familiar with the Aztec calendar, then you will have seen this in the center of the Aztec calendar, which I have a project on my Behance where I drew the Aztec calendar line work, and I make the Illustrator file available to anyone. So go on to my Behance profile and download it and have fun with it.
Oh,
Because
that's
I don't,
awesome.
yes, thank you. I don't own the design. It existed for at least 500 years. And so it's for us all to use and use your powers for good. So there it is. This is my idea. I said, okay, this is what I want. Then they threw a curveball at me. They said, Dan, we have a sponsor and their logo needs to go here. I'm like, okay, I can work with that. we have to work with our sponsors because they're the ones who make things happen. All right, so that's it. So I got my outline idea. I have a quick little layout, and so this is what it's going to be. The measurements of the wall is 36 by 8. So of course that's 8 feet right here. First number is always the width. Second number is always the height. That's 36 feet here. And what it is these boards. And so right now they're not going to match up, but I'm just drawing the lines here. So they're 4 by 8 boards. And so there's 8. Is it 8? I think it's 8. 8 times 4 is 32. So yeah, so it's 8, 9 total boards. And so as I'm designing or the layout and the idea, I have to think of the proportion too. So that way, once I start working, I'll have a clear idea of how everything needs to fit. And when you have a project like this, you want to work within the artboard size that's gonna be the final result. So that way you're not sitting there creating this layout and then find out that the measurements are off and then you have to move things around, which there's a technique for handling that. A lot of times you want to keep all your elements in different layers so that you can always move things around. And one thing that I always do is that even if I have this character here and then there's an element behind, I still draw that whole element in his own layer, and then I draw this figure in this own layer. So that way, if I need to resize this background, I can do that, and then I don't have to go back and fill in the areas that I missed because there was a figure in front of that element. So there's a whole lot of things that goes into thinking out the project, thinking out the sketch, thinking out where certain things are going to go. And so there it is. So I have my idea. I said, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to do. And then goes to creating the document the way I want it to. But first, I'm going to start looking for references. Now, here's where I want to talk about bringing in references into your drawing. You should do that. Okay. Your drawing is going to, the quality and the level of your skill is going to rise when you start using references. And I know it feels a little weird, and I don't feel weird about it, but maybe some people do, that we're going to sit there and trace something, and that's okay. But let me explain to you how I do my tracing and how does that evolve. Number one, I spend my time sitting there tracing and say, yes, this is the face that I want, and so on. What I am going to do is get the main elements of this face, and props to the photographer and the model, but I just need the basics. I'm not going to sit there and take every element and every piece of this photograph, but it's going to be enough that I have a beginning stage. And what happens with my beginning stages is that I will go ahead and sketch out as much as I can without grabbing all the details, but just as much as I can. And then I'll turn it off so I can see, okay, that's coming, it's coming. And as I'm tracing, eventually I'll get to a point where I'm not even going to keep the photograph after I trace. I'm just gonna trace enough and get some details, enough details that eventually I'm going to delete this photo off of here, and then I have to work some extra magic. So let's go ahead. Boom, boom, boom.
At what stage of the process do you tend to gather references? Do you usually have your sketch done and then you look for them, or do you ever gather them before you even start sketching?
I start sketching my rough draft. So that's what this is, the rough. This is the rough idea.
Yeah, a little thumbnail layout.
Yeah, you're going to get the idea out, and then you start looking for your references. So I look for my references on Oyin, because especially some of the Aztek artwork, I know it, I remember it, but it's best to go look and double check.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
yes, there's different camps of Aztec artists, where some are very detailed and exact, like it has to match exactly what it's supposed to be. And there's someone like me who just do whatever and be like, hey, that's cool, let's try that. And so you want to look some things up. And once I have my rough sketch, it's like, okay, now let me go look for something that fits. And so yes, I brought in these pictures because I already have them. But when you're looking up your references, now you're thinking about, well, if I'm looking for a particular goddess, you know, what kind of pose am I looking for? What kind of shot? And because I know I wanted a close up, then that's what I start looking for. Photography that of models that fit what I'm going for. And this one, it just stood out to me because, of course, she got the hair, the amazing hair. I wish my hair was like that. But like that hair is out there, and it's like, that's perfect, because that's part of my halo right there. That's already part of my halo. You know, it's like, whoa, that's super cool. All right. And so yeah, you know, and then I'm the kind of person, kind of artist that has folders and folders and folders of references, because I come across things online, looking at your portfolio, looking at your Twitter and Instagram. I'm like, ooh, I like that picture. I like how that artist worked those blend modes. I like how they work those gradients. Let me save that as a reference so that when it's time for the next project, I'm like, okay, I remember what Sam did. I need to study that for a second and then figure out how I can incorporate an element out of that. And so as an artist, man, you got to always have some references constantly.
Yeah, I definitely have a very large folder for art inspiration. And then my Instagram, you know, you can do the save option for that. So I have a ton of those saved too. Every time I see something that stands out, I'm like, oh, gotta come back to that later.
Right, exactly. Correct. Yeah. So that's awesome. That's awesome. That when people ask me what inspires you, it's like other artists.
Yeah.
Other artists. And so right now I did this. I'm like, okay, this is super cool. I like it. I think I'm gonna roll with that. And so let me just get a couple more things here. And I think there's the other earring. Got it. And turn that off. So that's it. Once I have the sketch that I want, there it goes. Here goes the other goddess. Boom, turn it down. Turn down the opacity. That's my method to always turn down the opacity on that layer, so that when I create a new layer, then I can always trace, but I can still see what's behind. So there we go. Boom. And like I said, I'm not sitting here going to match every eyelash. However, I want the placement of the eyes, the placement of the nose. This lip right here, I don't know, she's saying shh. Or she's thinking like, what should I do with you, mortal? But in any case, there we go. Boom. Just go ahead and do some quick outlines. Now, there is a project that I did a couple years ago leading up to Adobe Max in LA. And so I drew 20 some characters, including Robzilla and Orlando Aracena, a lot of Adobe illustrators and artists. And this is what I did. I found a picture of them. I traced it. And I was working with Adobe Sketch and Adobe Draw in those days. This is right before Fresco came out and before the announcement of Fresco. That was the same year, actually. And so what I did the same process in Adobe Sketch. I sketched out the tracing, and then I imported that sketch into Adobe Draw, which now we have Fresco doing all of that in one place. And then I went with my vectors, which is what I'm going to show also some of that process. And basically, I just need this sketch as a reference for my vectors. And what happens with my vectors and the vector brushes, it's up to me. And that's where the drawing just changes completely. And even though there was a reference and there is a picture, it is now my own interpretation. And this is why it's okay to start a tracing, because then you have the foundation for your art style, for your technique to then for the art to take on its own new look and its own style. So go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, do you use the lighting reference of the photos at all once you do vector, or do you kind of create that yourself?
I kind of create that myself, especially because I kind of know where I want my light source to come from. And though it would be very nice, it'd probably save me a lot of work if I saved.
I guess if it has the right lighting, you always could, right?
Yes. And but yes, you always could. And it's always important to even pay attention to the lighting, though, that is already in the reference, because that helps out a lot, especially when you're trying to figure out shapes and values. It's sometimes just easier to follow along and say, okay, cool, this is where that's gonna go, and you're halfway there. But I've been drawing for a long time, a really long time, and so yeah, I kind of just make up my own as I go along. What about you? Do you use references, and do you use your light source?
I need to get better about it. I actually kind of had a realization lately that I need to use reference a little bit more. I think I just get lazy sometimes and I start drawing like a pose out of a character and I just keep going. But I'm actually making an effort to do that. And I actually got this kind of cool RGB light, and I'm trying to set up my little office here so I can have a better situation so I can easily step back from my chair and take some reference pictures. So I'm making an effort to use that more, because it definitely helps. You know, if something's not looking right, there's no reason just to leave it looking kind of odd when you can just reference it.
Yep. And that I pay attention to other artists also, is like, how do other artists represent light sources and textures in their work, and that makes it stand out and say, whoa, that looks good. And so anytime I get that feeling, whoa, that looks good, I need to keep track. It's like, okay, let me study that for a minute. What happened here?
Also, John in chat says, watching this is very helpful. Dan and Sam, just started using Fresco last week on my Cintiq Pro 16.
Nice. Yeah, you go.
Also says he loves how you whip through these lines. I did a line, redid it like 50 times. Looks like I got to build that muscle memory. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
It's a lot of repetition.
It is. That's right. And one thing that happens a lot, I come from 20-year professional artist working in traditional media, and then coming into digital, it takes a lot of practice to find that control on this hard tip of the Apple Pencil on a glass, surface. I have a hue on here. I have a Cintiq. Downstairs, I have an Surface. And all of those have different types, tips, different, the glass feels different. And so, yes, it's going to take that constant. And I was very frustrated in the beginning. I was like, I'm used to my pencil. Why can't this work the same as my pencil? It's not a pencil. It's not a pencil.
I mean, there's that, like, the tools you're using, that always takes a little bit of a learning curve to get used to it. But even when I'm like away from drawing for, I don't know if I'm like away for a week on holiday, I don't really draw during that period. When I come back and I'm doing line work, or even if I've just been painting and not drawing for quite some time, I feel like I have to shake off that rust a little bit and get used to getting those flowing lines and getting that kind of smooth way of sketching. Like, it takes a little bit of warming up.
That's right. Yep. And you know, I kind of now years later, I kind of like that. You know, you want to feel like the new challenge. You don't want to feel stale. You don't want to get used to the medium so much, because sometimes I feel like I get lazy. I do shortcuts and in my drawings, and you can see it. I can see it. My wife can see it. My wife tells me a lot of times, like, yeah, that's not one of your best. I'm like, why you say that? And it's like, cause she knows.
It's nice to have that feedback, that honesty.
That's right. So at this point, I do want to point out, at this point, I started the sketch. I started the idea. I'm going to go in and adjust the artboard. Why do I adjust the artboard after I start the sketch? It's because it's very necessary to start drawing, start the sketch, start the idea, get the rough draft out there. You cannot edit something if there's nothing to edit. And a lot of times this happens to me too. And that's why I'm saying it out loud to all of you, that we get stuck in all the little details. And it's like, I don't have the right brush. I don't have the right pencil. This is not it the way I want it. And then we don't start the artwork. We get stuck in the perfection of something. So right away, you need to start sketching and drawing. Now that I started sketching and drawing, now I'm going to go ahead and look at my artboard and say, okay, I want the artboard to have the proportion that I need to have this drawing the way I want to. And so now I'm looking at my artboard and I'm changing the size. 18 by 4 is in proportion to 36 by 8. Even though that's feet, this is inches, it is still a proportion that works. So I will click on OK, and boom, there we go. So now I'll go ahead and say done, continue. Thank you very much. I go ahead and start grabbing my fresh new sketches. Let's get the move tool and set it down. Got it, done. Get the next one and get the move tool, set it where I want it, done. Now, as I start sketching and adding elements, I want to also keep in mind how much room do I have for certain things, and is it in balance? Now, one thing that's going to happen with this mural is that I do have the sponsor all the way to the left-hand side. So it's adding an extra element to my art, and so now it's really off balance. It's kind of shifted over, and but I'm going to ignore that. So I want my drawing to be in balance with itself, and whatever's outside of it, that's cool. It's part of the mural, but it's not part of my overall design. It's kind of just an element that's kind of hanging out right there. And so that's when now I have to sit here and create a new layer. Now I go ahead and get my, and I have to switch off and on these glasses. Sorry about that. Here we go. Boom. I want the square. Can I bring this in like that? As a matter of fact, let's do the square again. Let's see if I can do the square back.
When doing a project like this, how confident are you in quoting the client a price? Is it different because it's going to be this giant design on a wall, or is it kind of all the same because it's digital regardless?
Yes, both of those reasons. It's because of the size of the wall and who the client is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's very important to keep in mind who the client is, and so the work required is the same, especially if you have a process. Like I have a very very defined process for my work. So whether it was a mural, a t-shirt design, or any kind of client work, it's a very defined process because I've developed that through the years and working in different projects, and I know how I work and the different art styles that are required for different types of projects. I found a way to make it work for me. But the thing that's going to always change is who is the client and where's this art going to go. So the pricing will always change. Now, if Sam asked me for a drawing, yeah, it's a cool person. And like, listen, do me a favor later. I got you, you know. Adobe calls, well, there's going to be a different price. Microsoft calls. I've done work for Noel Brands, the company that owns Sharpie, Prismacolor, and Elmer's. And so they have their own pricing, especially, and this is the art business talk that I can get really deep into, especially when the art is going to touch a variety of things. It can go from promotional things like marketing to products, to just branding, to just online. So depending on the things that the art touches, then that's when you start determining what value you give your art. And there's a lot of things that go into valuing your art. Your talent, where you are in the market, what's the market like, what's the industry say, that you should charge or what the pay is. And as time's gone on, I defined my own, and I tell people, yeah, that might be what you pay artists, but that's not what you pay me. I have a rate.
Is this something you've kind of learned most by experience?
Yes. You learn that by experience. Right now what I'm doing is duplicating layers, and you can see what I'm doing, but we're gonna keep talking. Okay, just ask questions. Yeah, you learn this by failing and charging less than what you should charge, and then realizing later it's like that was not enough.
Yeah, I think everyone has one of those moments like, okay.
Yeah,
could have probably charged a lot more for how long I spent on that.
Exactly. It's you start and so in the beginning, you should just do the artwork, but as time goes on, you kind of want to start measuring how long certain things take you. Like, how long does it take me to do a logo, to do an illustration, to draw a character, all these little things. And once you start counting that time, then you know where you are in terms of speed, in terms of talent, and making sure that your client is happy with the results. And then and as time goes on, you're like, yeah, you do the math. It took me 30 hours and they paid me $300. I don't know, was that $10 an hour? Maybe that's cool. I don't want to, this is the art business talk. I'm sorry, Adobe and Behance. I used to say I want to get paid tens of dollars. Then I started to say I want to get paid hundreds of dollars for my work. Now I say I want to get paid thousands of dollars. And it's not just because I've been in as a professional artist for a long time. It's just that the life you want to live, the bills you want to pay, the vacations you want to take, the kind of lifestyle you want for yourself is going to be paid for by your effort. And you don't get paid what you deserve. You get paid what you negotiate.
Yeah. And I think, like you're saying, so much of that stuff, I mean, from my experience too, does come from experience. Like you said, knowing how long you take for doing a piece and how much time each one takes. I think that's super important, because I think the times in the past I've stressed myself out the most, or when I took on projects that I didn't actually have a good idea of how long it was going to take me. I wasn't confident in, like, oh yeah, I've done this specific kind of thing dozens and dozens of times before. It's going to take me about this many hours. And those are the ones where sometimes you feel like you undercharged, or it took much longer, or just general stress. So yeah, I think nailing down your process is a really good part of being able to confidently quote a price.
That's right. And someone asks us that, do you ever time yourself drawing? I don't necessarily time myself, but you should. You should know how long it takes you to do something. And not just in the amount of time, like here in real time, like we're sitting here talking and drawing. I just did 9 boards that are not even right. They're just kind of like thrown in there so I can kind of get an idea that I am within my layout that I need to have. But not just real time, but also in your schedule time. A lot of times we talk about being able to do something in a week, in a day, or whatever, but you got to take into account, you have to sleep. If you have a job you go to, if you have family, if you have children, you have responsibilities that you have to handle and deal with, that comes into account. So when you say I can do that in a day, if you sat down for one whole day, maybe, but if you have all these other responsibilities, then you're gonna have to fit those other responsibilities and that time to work on this project. So in reality, you need a week. So you have to time yourself, and you have to time your schedule, because that's how burnout happens.
And I think it can be tough if you kind of get yourself in a situation where you're trying to say it's going to take less time than it does. And then, those responsibilities come in, you take longer. You don't want to overpromise and underdeliver.
Right. You should always, that's right. You should always underpromise and overdeliver.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's something that you learn as time goes on. It's not something that, coming out of art school or just one day waking up saying, you know what, I'm going to be a professional artist. It's not something that you kind of know. It just takes time. One way to help minimize the damage that you do to yourself and the trauma, because it's always shocking, is by having a mentor or art business, art technique, art mentor who, and it's not all the same person. This can always be different people. And then when you do that, then that's when you're able to learn from someone and their experience and then say, okay, here's what I need to watch out for. Here's how I can better my process, because someone is showing you what they've done for themselves and you can start using those techniques.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're kind of getting real deep into the conversation. I like that, Sam. I like that.
I mean, so much of this stuff, yeah, it's like, it's those kind of humps and struggles and issues I think all artists who are pursuing that go through. You kind of have to learn. A lot of times it's just through experience, because like I remember, you know, trying to look up guides and tutorials, and there's that graphic artists handbook of pricing and ethical guidelines called something like that. But I feel like that stuff is so individual, like to you, what kind of art you do, who you are, who your clients are. You know, there's just so many variables. So I think it's hard. You can get a lot of that info, but at some point you kind of have to just jump in and do it and adjust as you go, because it's just so individual.
Yes, it's very individual, and not all industries are the same. Not all industries require all these different things, and so it's best if you start on that path of what you want to see in your life, and then you look for those things along the way. And until you start in, you won't know. You won't know if even this is what you like. Sadly, this is what has happened to people I know. They go to school, they go to art school, they take all these classes, they get a degree, and then afterwards they're like, yeah, I kind of don't want to do this. Like, that wasn't it. But wait a minute, you got student loans.
Yeah.
You know, and
yeah,
so
tough.
yeah, and so it's best to look for those resources, especially today. Like right now, we're talking about this. We're here for Fresco, Illustrator, and Vector, and we're kind of talking about the business of art and careers. But this is how you learn, is by all this information that we have out here today. Is start picking up on it, pay attention to certain illustrators, certain artists who are somewhere where you want to be, and listen to the conversations, ask questions in the chat, all of that stuff. And then that way, little by little, you can pick up on little things that you would never imagine, or they don't talk about in 4 years of college.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many resources online, like more than you could ever, you know, watch in a lifetime at this point. So there's no shortage of, like, if you want to learn how to do something, there's certainly some YouTube videos or live streams out there.
Yes, there are. And I watch a lot. Even now, like, it's free information. I want it.
I mean, like, there's so many new things I'm trying lately, and every time, you know, I just search on YouTube, and inevitably there's like a bunch of people telling you exactly how to do it step by step. So it's easier to learn anything, you know, now more than ever.
It is. And, you know, like I have a Discord. You know, there are many artists who have a Discord, a place where you can hang out with them, and artists are accessible and will share, because we have to stand in this together. Your art career is important to me as my art career, because together as an art community, we're then able to move forward and get paid what we deserve, get treated the way we need to be treated, to continue to be creative and appreciated, and with the talents that we have. And so the more we share, the more we include artists in this community to learn and build, the better off we're all going to be. That's how I feel.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so, the community online is one of the things that kind of got me into it all.
There you go. And Behance has done a great job. So big ups to Behance and the teams behind it, Adobe, for the continued support, because this is what why I'm here, because we continue to share and build, and the community seems to like it, because I know I do. This is awesome. All right, so far what I have done is sketched out a rough draft, started adding elements into my artboard. I renamed my file. I click on save now. This is a big deal right here, where you can just click on the top where the name is. There's a little drop down. You can click on save now. You want to always save your work. Adobe Fresco has this amazing thing that Adobe has done, the Creative Cloud, where it will save your file to the cloud. And if I was to open Fresco on my computer here or on my Surface, I can see the same file. If I open Photoshop on any of my devices under my account, I can see my Fresco file. So that's because the Creative Cloud backs up and syncs your work across your devices so that you can always pick up where you left off and you don't lose your work. But I always make sure I click on Save Now. I also started to add some elements. So I know I want the Ojin in the middle. I want the two elements on the top and the bottom on the back, and then my goddesses on the right and left. So this is my circle. Let me see. Let me go ahead and duplicate. I like duplicating. I love working with layers. I like duplicating my layers and reusing them over and over again. And let me tell you, layers are free. And that's what that's something that Orlando Arocena said. He aka Mexifun. I will always give him props for that, because that's it. It's like it's unlimited, the things that you can do once you start using your layers. And of course, there's some people who go to extremes and with the layers, and that's great if that works for you. But if you don't use layers, then you're constantly always battling with yourself to edit. Yeah. So please use layers. Please use layers. So okay, so far we have my boards. Let me turn those boards off. That's the wrong thing. Do a tap, boom, bam. There goes the boards. I'm gonna have a sponsor. So the sponsor goes here. So we're not gonna worry about them right now. I do have one goddess. I do want a circle behind her. I want a circle in the middle. I want a circle for this goddess here. And so when I created my boards, I didn't really make sure they were correct or they were right, especially because we're live and I just need to come on with it. But what you want to do is make sure that if you're like me, make sure that things fit where they should. I'm a creative person who likes to go off of creativity, but I'm also kind of an analytical person. Like, is that matching? Is that even? You know, is that lining up correctly? And then I'm not gonna say that being a Gemini is a big deal, but I do like having a balance. You know, I like balance and order. And so if there's something on this side, then maybe there should be something on that side to kind of help it balance out. And so when you're looking at it, you're attracted, something brings you in, and you want to draw a person in to see the rest of the picture and understand what's happening. And in bad design, we'll do the opposite of that. So we got to find the fundamentals of design and start incorporating them into big murals like this, so that is so people feel comfortable checking it out. All right, so what are we looking like? Okay, let me go ahead and get out of that drawing, let it sink. But check this out. Just like when you finish a recipe and in the kitchen, and then they put it in the oven, and then they walk to the other side of the kitchen and and pull something out of the oven on the other side, and it's already cooked. There is my sketch. All right, so let me go ahead and go over all the different elements and things that are in here. And there's one layer that looks like it's on. Let's turn that off. There we go. Boom. So I want to bring order to the galaxy. That's right. Rolando, what's up? Geminis. So here's the overall sketch. So first, the rough sketch, I sent it off to the curator because I had to get approval from the curator. There's a curator in charge of the whole installation. And she said, yes. I said, good. That's the basic idea. But then I had to send them a clean sketch, a sketch that they can look at and say, yeah, that's cool. So here is the sketch of, and I forget how to say the words. Look in my Behance profile and you'll find this project. So I forget the exact how to say the names of the goddesses, but she is the Lady of Death, and she is the ruler of the underworld, and so is Death. And we're very familiar with her because in the Day of the Dead celebrations, you see her all the time. Anytime, the sugar skulls, that is based on the Mexican tradition of the Day of the Dead. So very familiar goddess here. And so I added a lot of the elements here together. I put flowers around her, and if you notice the Day of the Dead celebrations, they're very colorful. They're full of life, which is the opposite of what we think of death. To the Aztecs and mythology and Mexican traditions and culture, death is a celebration of life. It's just another part of life. And so this is what I wanted to bring. So we have kind of like a lotus in the background, which is not Mexican at all, but I wanted to throw that in there. And then the goddess in the middle, she has the makeup on, and this is all different layers. Let me see. That's not her. She's around here somewhere. And yeah, that's it right there. That's it. So let's go ahead and look at this. Just double click, boom. So we have different elements here. We have just the details on the face and the makeup. Then we have the background. And the reason why I do different layers for different parts of the sketch, let's say I want to shift the hair a little bit. I want to shift that background a little bit. I can turn things off and on, or even move that layer around to then fit it to where I want it. Another part of drawing, at any drawing, not just a mural like this, is that give yourself the room to change your mind and give yourself the room for the art to say, Dan, that's cool, but it'd be nice if it was shifted to the other side. And I've learned this through talking to my artist mentor, and he'll say things to me like, dude, why don't you go ahead and make that bigger and that size smaller, and da, da, da. And those are little things that you don't think about, you don't see, because you kind of like what you like and you do what you do. And someone else will come along and point out something, and you're like, whoa, that makes sense. I didn't even start doing murals until my mentor said, you know what would be really cool? If you started drawing big, that exact same stuff bigger. And I was painting Aztec art already by then. And I thought to myself, you know what? That will help solve my problem of trying to draw details. And I'm not that good at painting. And I don't like that. I really don't have that brush control that I need to get that kind of detail that I can do with pencils and markers. And so when I went bigger with my canvas, I was able to then get in the detail that I wanted with the markers that I like to paint with. And so you wanna have let that art talk to you. As time goes on, you'll start figuring things out, whether or not that fits. There goes the shading for the background. This is the roses in the middle, roses on the outside, that background to her hair, the actual goddess herself, and then the circles around the back, and then finally that lotus. Boom. And so as I work through my drawing, you know, sometimes the drawing says things to me, say, really? Are you sure? and then I draw that. It's like, why not? You know, and one of the things that I really like to do is I'll take that layer, duplicate that layer, and then I turn off the new duplicate and go back to the main one and start making extra edits. And if I like them, I keep them. If I don't like them, I say, well, that was cool. At least I tried it. I saw what it looked like. And let's go ahead and delete that and go back to where I was. So you always want to duplicate what you're going to work on to experiment further. And you won't know what it looks like until you see it. You have ideas about it, but you have to see it. And if you change your mind, you always have a copy. You don't want to use that undo. Eventually, you're going to run out of undos. Yeah, so you got to always duplicate. Layers are free.
And that's what I say about digital art is, like, I think so many people kind of have that fear of failure or fear of messing up their piece that they're working on. But with digital, I would say, like, just create a new layer. You can do anything you want. And if it doesn't work out, just delete the layer.
That's right.
Which happens to me a lot, you know? Yeah, you can try crazy ideas if you have them that you wouldn't want to try if you were doing like an oil painting or watercolor.
Exactly. That is you know, paper when you're inking, that's it. If you decide to put that ink line there, that's it. You know, we're in digital. Digital gives you so much power. Use it. Use your powers for good. Okay, so I'm looking at Quetzalcoatl back here. That I do know some of these names. So there it is. Quetzalcoatl's in the background. Again, I use a lot of layers for this. I have layers for, and there are groups of layers in here. There's stacks and stacks. This is for the head, part of the body. Once I did the 2 squares of the body, I duplicated that layer and and move those 2 next squares and then 2 more squares. So why do I have to draw stuff that's the same? Just duplicate it and move it over. So we have the Quetzalcoatl. Then this is Ojin, this blue part. So Ojin also has different pieces. When I shaded one side, I just duplicated that one side shading and transform or mirror so that I can have it on the other side. There it is, the shading. There's the line work. What I actually did here with the line work, I did the lines. They were very thin. They were very light. So no matter how high the opacity is, it's only going to look as dark as when I drew it. So instead of going over the lines to make them darker, what I did is I duplicated, and now it gets darker. Duplicate that layer again, it gets much darker. So now it's very bold and strong lines. There it is. Bam. And I do the same with my shading if I wanted to make the shading darker. Another thing is I like to keep things in separate layers. So let's say I feel the shading is too dark. I can always turn it down. I don't want to take an eraser to it. You know, in some cases that might be fine. Right now, I want to play with the opacity. Remember your blend modes. Just play with that and you'll be surprised with what you can do.
Yeah, it gives you more flexibility that way.
Yes, yes. So once I got to this point and the curator approved it, then it was time to get started with the vectors. And so here's where you have to decide what your art style is going to be. And in my case, I know I wanted vector because I want to be able to draw it and then stretch out that image to fit in every situation, especially the mural. And so vector gives you that flexibility to transform the artwork to any size you want. And so let's as we're talking, let's show something here. Boom, 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 bam. Let's turn that one off. There it is. And so one thing we cannot do with pixel art, I don't even know what you call it, pixel art or raster art, because I use the word vector a lot and I don't know what other people do. Stan could help us with that if there was a word for that or anybody out there. In any case, when you transform these drawings, these sketches, you're going to start seeing pixelation. And if you printed at 8 feet tall, you're going to definitely see some pixels there. And so that's why I want to draw in vector. And because I'm going to draw in vector, even though my sketch looks really cool and clean and has this sketchy sketchy gradients here, that's not how the final artwork is going to look. So I had it, especially if I use vector brushes, because I won't have all these gradients to play with. And so I can sit here and play around with my pencil. I love sketching. So check out some of my live streams because we need to do some traditional drawing. I got tons of sketchbooks and pencils. And so there it is. Look at that. This is so cool. Just the Apple Pencil. I'm using the regular brush. It's a sketching brush. There's many brushes out there. Big ups to Kyle T. Webster for all the amazing brushes he has created in for Photoshop, Fresco, and all Adobe stuff. But I just gave me the pencil, and I'm happy. I'm happy. Just give me the basic pencil. And so what I like to do is try. This is where what Sam was asking earlier. Do you work out your light sources later or off the drawing? And so I think this is some of it is off the drawing, off the picture, off the reference picture. And so I'm establishing where my shading is gonna go, where my and I can turn that down.
So you actually establish where the shading is going to be in the sketchy phase before
yes,
vectors?
I try. Yes, I try so that when I'm doing the vector, I don't have to think about it. because there's a lot of stuff to think about when you're doing vector. Should the shape go here? Should it go there? You know, how can I trim down my shape to get the effect that I want? And so, yeah, I try to do as much as I can way before. Something, I don't know who told me this, but they said that you should have the sketch drawn up with the plan of what you're going to do in Illustrator before you hop on Illustrator. And, you know, and now because everything is digital, we have different devices that we can draw with Illustrator. You can also sketch in Illustrator if you wanted to. But once you hop on to Illustrator or a program like that, you want to just move along through your drawing. If you have a deadline to meet. Now, if you're experimenting and trying things out, well, then you're good to go. Go ahead and do what you want. But the deadline was to have this mural up by this weekend. This weekend's Saturday. Mm-hmm. So I, you know, experimenting and sketching and, you know, daydreaming while you're in Illustrator is I couldn't afford to do that. So that's why I try to do all of the work here in sketching before I then start my vector brushes.
Yeah, I say the same thing with my painting process. I try to figure everything out in the line drawing. So once I paint, I don't have to think about it. I can just focus on the painting. Like everything, I always say the blueprint is pretty much already laid out for me.
Yeah. You want to give your brain layers of work, you know, and so that's why using different layers for different parts of the process focuses your brain to just create what you need to do at that moment. And so that's why I say layers are free. You know, you should have the super rough sketch layer, a smoother layer, a clean, a smoother sketch, a clean sketch, a sketch with the shadows in there, you know, and then finally you start with your vector. You know, all these different steps will allow your brain to just focus on one thing at a time. And it also gives you the bones to get to this point here where now the character, the illustration, the drawing is established enough that you know where you're going with it. And now a long time ago, I used to be able to just go from here to here, boom. And but the more steps you take, the more robust your drawing looks. And as time goes on, you'll find your process helps the way your art looks, but also your how comfortable you are with your work. Another thing that happens is that I can stop right now, leave this drawing for a week, come back and know what my next step was when I look at the drawing. I know where to pick up right after, when, no matter how long I've been away from the artwork. And that is only possible when you have a process. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, having a solid workflow has made my life a lot easier, but I mean, it takes a while to get there, you know, you kind of figure that out. Mm-hmm. The longer you're drawing, the more you kind of settle into one of those.
Yes. Yeah. So watch a lot of Sam Peterson streams so that you can get those secrets. Those are little secrets that, you know, people always looking for like that shortcut. It's not a shortcut. It's a secret steps. And it's not even a secret. It just takes time. You got to sit there and do it and do it and do it. So once
experience.
Yes. All right. So once I get to a point where I'm happy with it, I said, okay, cool. Let's go ahead and look for, this is Quetzalcoatl. That's the vector for that. So obviously it's below. And so I did, I think I started this piece first. And then when I started this element, when I started the whole mural, I wanted to test out what I could do with vector brushes and so experiment along the way to get the kind of art that I want in the end. When I'm painting in canvas, I'll start, before I paint on the big canvas, I'll paint like 3 or 4 paintings in smaller canvases. Just to experiment and try something like, you know, I know what I'm used to, I know what I like, but what if I try this? What if I try that? And I'll do 2 or 3 canvases first. And then I was like, okay, I get it. And then I do the big canvas and now I'm in my zone. And so I will do the same thing when it comes to vector. And then in this illustration, what I did is I went ahead and created a new layer. I got my Quetzalcoatl, go to my brush, vector brushes, and I'm always using the taper, basic taper. I really love the basic taper. It was very rough in the beginning, me and this basic taper, when Adobe Ideas or Adobe Lines, I forget which one came first. I think it was Adobe Ideas. And when I started to draw with Adobe Ideas and the vector line work and you're drawing, it's like, why does this line follow me like this? Why does it follow me like that? What's going on here? And so it takes time to get used to it. But the one thing I got stuck on is I want my digital to react the same way as my traditional. Why is my digital not doing this? Because it's a different medium, and you have to get past that yourself. The way you draw with a pencil is not the same way you're going to draw or the result you're going to get with an ink pen. And it's not going to be the same results with a paint marker and a paintbrush on canvas versus a board or the wall. And the way you do murals on a indoor wall is not what happens in the outdoor wall. And so we have to allow ourselves the chance to learn the little things that make each medium different. And that's what I had to do for myself. And so what I like to do here, you see thick and thin lines. So the stroke is thicker for the outside than it is for the inside. Some of the strokes on the inside are very thin and small. And that's when you start taking time and learning your tools to the point where you can figure out how to get the fat lines. And so what I like to do is go like this. Bring the drawing to me. Bring the line to me. Bam. Let me turn down the opacity on that a little bit more. Where did you go?
There's a lot of love in chat, by the way, for your work and your process. Bruce says, love the flow of the sketch, even the colors. And I'm really loving that look of the vector lines with the like raster pencil shading. It's a really cool contrast.
If I could blow this up, the sketch, blow it up as a mural, I would have.
Has like a different style to it a little bit, yeah.
Yes. If I had a big fat pencil that I could sketch it on the wall, I would have done that because there's something about that pencil sketching, the dynamic and flow that is lost once you move on to the next layer, the next level. It's impossible to keep. So here it is. So there's the line. I start drawing my lines. If you want thin lines, apply a little bit of pressure. Line weights are important to make your artwork stand out. Boom, there it is. And then there you go. Look. Now there are like settings to make your line smoother. And so this is where we go. So I like to leave most of the settings the same. I don't touch them because I want to figure out how do I use this tool the way it was made. Some artist somewhere, and I'm sure there's a name and I'm unfamiliar with it, created this brush. They were drawing it and they said to Adobe and the Adobe team, hey, this is what you should do for the app. And so I want to know, well, what was that artist thinking that they said that's a good brush to use? But there are a couple of things that I turn off. One is velocity. I do not like the velocity, at least for what I'm doing, because then my brush stroke is going to change. If I go fast, you see how thin that line is? If I go slow, see how fat that line is? So I turn that off. I want to, no matter whether I'm drawing fast or slow, I get the same line weight. I need to have the same line weight, at least for my work. I don't even know what shape dynamics does. Let me see. What does that do? It looks like it just made it thinner.
Is that related to pen pressure at all?
This is the brush itself. This is related to the brush, not the pen pressure is right there. Pressure dynamics. Yeah. So pressure dynamics, I have it set to 49% because I don't want to go too extreme with my line weights when I'm and there's certain amount of pressure you can apply, and you have to get used to that. You have to really get used to that. So when a device says, you got 5,000 points of pressure versus 10,000, I know the number is different, but it's not 5 or 10. It's like 4,000 something, 8,000 something, whatever. It's like, I don't know. How could I tell? And my hand can only do so much.
Yeah.
And you always need to pay attention to how much pressure you apply when you're drawing digitally, because your hand will get tired. It will get tired. With traditional materials, you can just kind of lay the pencil there and sketch, and bam, the gravity itself will allow the pencil to leave a mark on the paper. But when it comes to digital, the various points of pressure gives you the line weights, but it also is going to cause stress. So I always draw on a table, on something sturdy, and I'm leaning like I would on any other kind of drawing that I want to have clean lines for. And pay attention to your pressure. In the beginning, I would always, my hand would hurt, my wrist would hurt, my fingers would hurt. And I said, I'm doing something wrong, because the artists have been drawing for a long time digitally. What am I doing wrong? And if you pay attention to those artists who work in studios and they create all these animations and comics and cartoons that we love to watch, you see that they have these big Cintiqs on this table, and they're sitting there like this. They're not on the couch leaning back. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You can do that if you want to, but you can only do that for so long.
Yeah.
When you're working in long-term production artwork, you need to have the right setup and comfort, even if it's the kitchen table. I've shared the kitchen table with my family before, and but you need to be comfortable so that your wrists and your fingers do not suffer from that.
Yeah, I make sure, I try to watch my posture, make sure I'm sitting up straight. I try to stretch regularly while I'm working, stretch my wrists. And I even kind of adjusted my sensitivity settings so that I never have to press super hard, that everything's a fairly light touch. And I feel like those 3 things are pretty key for me to keep from getting like some sort of repetitive stress injury or something like that.
Yeah. Athletes, they don't wear house shoes when they're running on a track. They don't wear dress shoes. They wear track shoes. You have to find the right tools and the mix of things to give you that advantage in taking advantage of these tools. And so, yes, that's perfect. That's exactly what you need to do. So this is my settings on my brush. I leave a lot of this off. The tapering, I do kind of trim it down a little bit. And you know what? For a long time, I didn't even touch this. But through watching Fresh Cake, I was like, how does he get these smooth, super amazing lines? What is he doing? What kind of iPad does he have? I have an iPad too. Like, what is it? And it's just that, the pressure sensitivity, the settings, little by little, build that out. So the settings are always down here on the bottom left. And one thing I didn't do is to turn on my, and no one says nothing, and that's okay. Boom, bam, shoulder touches. Yeah, the shoulder touches. So yeah, down here is where you'll find your settings for that. The smoothing, I don't really touch the smoothing. However, those options are available in most applications nowadays, and so use them. I myself love to draw in pencil and ink, and I've been doing it for a long time, that I can draw this smooth on a piece of paper as I can on screen. No smoothing tools required. Bam, there we go. And nice. And the way I do my lines is I bring the line to me. You want to bring the line to you. That's how you get the most control out of your hand, and technique. And use your elbow, use your shoulders. If you need to do this thing where you lean back, then do it. It will, your line work will show improvement. Bam.
Do you have any tips for line weight in terms of how you decide, what gets a thicker and thinner line weight?
Yes. So there's outlines, the outside lines get thicker lines because that helps define the overall shape or figure. Then there are thick lines that break up what's the foreground and what's in the background. So there it is. There's a thick line right there for the foreground, and that breaks up whatever lines happen here. Are these lines are not the same as those lines because this fat line right there has broken up the background from the foreground. And then here we have a thick line also, but this thick line is the mouth. This thick line is also the mouth, but the top one should kind of be a little thicker because this also creates a shadow. So that line is also gonna come in and say, oh, I'm also a shadow. Not only am I separating the inside of the mouth from the outside of the mouth, I'm also a shadow. So then the top line of the mouth is not the same as this bottom line of the mouth. You know, and that works for me.
Yeah, those are good tips.
Yeah, thank you. I have to say this, that it's best if you try. Always try, always test, you know, figure out what works for you. You know, I tell artists all the time, you know, it's the style that works for me may not work for you, even if we use the same techniques, even if we use the same process and workflows, you're going to end up with something different than me, just because we're all unique. We're all different. We are not machines. I don't think so. I'm not a machine. I am not a machine.
We are totally human, normal artists, everybody.
We are normal.
No machines here.
Yeah, right. And that is going to give you our art that uniqueness, you know. Only you can make the art that that you want the world to see. Only you. So it's up to you to go ahead and do it. Go ahead and put it together. And so a lot of times I like to do my outlines first, just so that I can establish the limit of my thick lines. Like, this is the limit. I'm not going to go beyond this. And now that I established the limit of my thick lines, I can then say, for the inside lines, I want them half as thick. And then for detail lines, I want them half as thick as that.
Yeah, so you kind of have like your primary shapes and then your secondary and tertiary. That makes sense. That's a good way to keep it consistent throughout.
We need order. When I work with Illustrator Vector and the pen tool, I do the same thing. I establish my stroke size. If I'm gonna use a 10 stroke size, you know, then that becomes my my guide. Okay, the next size is gonna be, you know, 5, 3, 1, 0.5, and so on. And so yeah, you kind of want to organize yourself, because like I said, if you leave the drawing, things happen in life. You get sidetracked. You start a whole nother drawing. This is what happens with creatives all the time. You're doing a drawing, you think of a new idea, you put that drawing away, you work on the other idea. And so when you come back to the drawing, you don't want to have to figure out, why would I do that? You don't want to ask yourself, who did this? Who was working on my drawing that did all this mess? It's out of order. It makes no sense. And so, yeah, you kind of want to establish your routine, your practice, your workflow. And I'm not too happy about that, but let's go like that. Now let's do it again.
We also got a little tip from Gareth on the topic of stretching, maintaining a healthy work. Mentioning they used therapy putty, which I've never heard of. That's really interesting. Kind of building strength in your hand and wrist.
Yeah, you need to, because when I first started digital, I'm telling you, when I first started drawing digital on the screen, there was a pain in my elbow. Seriously, there was a pain in my elbow. I was like, what is that? And that's improper posture. It's improper posture. And you know, we sit a lot. Artists sit a lot, and we're punched over a lot. And it's like, you wanna do other things with your body eventually, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's that thing. If that's what you're doing all day, if you really want to work at your highest level of, potential and efficiency, it is good to have some sort of workout routine, even if it's just like, you go for a little walk each day,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
that stuff does kind of catch up to you if you're just sitting all day and you're not strengthening the supporting muscles of all that. You can get those injuries. And I've
Yep.
had that, what you said, the elbow thing. I've had like a little feeling of that before, and then a little feeling in my hand. And every time that happens, I'm like, all right, I gotta up the up the stretching, up all that.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, it's always gone away after like a day, but
Right.
makes you think about it for sure.
Oh yeah. I have some weights. They're downstairs in my other desk setup, and they're 5-pound weights. They're not that heavy, and but
Mhm.
I go and I use them, a few times a day. I'm not growing muscles. I am making sure that my muscles that I do have, they're turned to stone. That's it. You don't
Yeah.
want them to turn to stone. Not yet. Not yet.
And I think there's probably a lot to be said just if you are doing something like that. Like I do pull-ups sometimes. Any sort of grip strengthening exercise,
Mm-hmm.
I've
Mm-hmm.
heard is really good for
Yeah.
for keeping those types of injuries away.
Yes. Yeah. Because it's real easy. To for your body to just slowly turn to rock because you're doing this the most a lot spending a lot of time doing this, and I like to tell other people who work out, be like, well, this is my gym, you know
Yeah.
people who do other pastimes, like, well, this is my pastime. And but so it's real easy to spend a lot of time and forget that day has passed, that the day has turned to night and it's daytime again. You
Yeah.
forget. You
Forget to eat
forget.
sometimes.
Yeah,
Get up.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I always say that the physical stuff I think translates over because like if you're not getting enough sleep and if you're not feeling healthy, it becomes really hard to focus, it becomes hard to draw for any long period of time without
Mm-hmm.
kind of feeling distracted or like you
Mm-hmm.
can't get into it. So I mean all that stuff does help the art. So I try to make it a priority, especially
Yes,
sleep.
that's right. Yeah, your art always looks different when you come back the day
Yeah.
later, and you're refreshed. One last tip I would like to add. I don't know how much time we have. Oh yeah, we still got a little bit of time. We got another.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Got it. Over half an hour or so.
Okay, cool. Another tip I like to share is that turn the drawing. Turn the drawing. You don't do this to your hand. Don't twist it. Don't do all of that. That's not necessary. That's why our artboards rotate. And if the artboard doesn't rotate, then rotate the iPad. Rotate stuff. Your arm, your hand has a natural motion. Use it. Your wrist pivots, but only to a certain extent. Your fingers move, your elbow, your shoulder, and if you need more, your waist. It all pivots. Use that. So that's how I'm able to get the lines that I want by turning around the drawing and saying, okay, I want this line to go like this.
So do you make a lot of the same types of strokes and you just rotate the canvas to stay within that motion?
Yes. And because that's where all that practice pays off. That wax on, wax off. It's always the same motion, and you can try the opposite, but then you won't have, number one, your body doesn't have the same type of control because of the way the muscles are made. And so pulling things towards you gives you more control than pushing them away from you. You have more strength pushing, but more control pulling, at least when it comes to drawing. And this is something that I learned from doing tattoos. I did tattoos for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And it's not easy to rotate the person and say, I need your arm to go all the way this way,
Yeah.
So that's when you have to move your body around. But because you practice something so much to the point that it's nothing, you don't feel like it's nothing. Oh, I need that line. Boom, do that line. And but it's because that repetition has given you that muscle memory that now your body just does it. So there goes Aztek Gods. Now here's where part of this process, I kind of did enough in Fresco, but then I jumped into Illustrator, and we'll talk about that tomorrow, because like all of these details in the background right here, like that's a lot of straight lines. There is a tip and a trick for that. Just draw your stroke, hold it for a second, and line it up. Boom, done. Draw your stroke, do the stroke, hold it for a second, and it lines up. Boom. Do it again. Draw that line, hold it for a second, and it lines up. That one's off a little bit. Do it again. Boom. Here we go. There it is. See how I can move my line as long as I can draw it and then hold it for a second. Hold it for a second. Boom. There it goes. And so this works in Fresco, and that's cool. But I want super clean lines, and I don't want to sit there and do this all the whole way. And so what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna finish this right now. Let's go ahead and finish. Another technique, another little trick here is to get that touch modifier, double tap it, and get that ring on the outside. And look, you can get rid of all those little extras.
Bam. Oh, that's cool. I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's a great tip.
Yeah. Thank you. And so you can do this all day long if you wanted to, but I kind of wanted to do it in Illustrator, and I'm gonna show you tomorrow why. And that's because we have the pen tool. I can play with the stroke of the lines, and then I started using my gradients, and so I can knock it all out pretty fast in Illustrator on the desktop. There's a lot you can do in Illustrator on the iPad. I'm going to share some of that too, but basically I've been drawing with Illustrator on the desktop a long time. I think it was 2000, the year 2001, something like that.
Oh wow. Yeah,
so it's been a minute. So I've been drawing digital for a long time, or creating digital art for a long time, but drawing on the screen maybe 5-6 years. Yeah, because I couldn't afford a tablet that I can do that with. So it's all mouse and pen tool.
Are you a lot more comfortable now that you can do that? Because you have that kind of traditional background with drawing. I'm sure that felt more natural to you.
Oh yes. Once you get past the fact that you're drawing on glass with a hard tip, oh yes, oh, I love it. I'm kind of addicted to devices now. I have an iPad, a Surface, a Huron, a Cintiq, and none of them bought brand new. None of them. You Facebook Marketplace, find someone to trade with. And when I was doing tattoos, I would trade tattoos for the device that I wanted, because somebody always had a device to sell. Nice. So yeah, that barter system. Oh my goodness, I love it. All right, so here we go. We got all of this lines here. Oops, that one did not work out. Go, boom, bam. And so as you can see, slowly I built out these segments, and then I can copy and paste or duplicate and move the next layer over and over and over again. But eventually I said, you know what, I'm gonna roll with this and put it on, use that Illustrator on the desktop to work it out. The other part I'm gonna share that I want to draw is the middle. So let's go ahead and explore. There it is. What happened? Oh, I did that in Illustrator also. Yes, I did this one in Illustrator. Oyin. The name is Oyin. And so the reason is because all these circles, I didn't want to draw them and then they look a little wobbly. And so let me do it in Illustrator where it's just a shape, boom, 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 shape, shape, and that's it. However, these middle pieces, and I did draw those because I wanted those to have that drawing style, which is one of the reasons why do I draw in Fresco when I could do all this in Illustrator. And that's because I want this dynamic look to my drawings, to my vector art. Vector in Illustrator is already kind of, I don't want to say clinical, but it's very clean, very, very clean. And so if I do everything in Illustrator, it's going to have that very solid, super sharp look, which is great in some instances, but because I want this to have that DTM flavor, then that's why I draw it in Fresco.
Yeah, there's like just a little bit of that hand-drawn flair to it with the cleanness of the vectors, which is really cool.
Yes, yes. And because I'm good at drawing, you know, I love the pen tool, but let me draw it. Let me draw it.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, let me do it. So there it goes. Bam.
Tanya says, I'm think this is in relation to something else we were talking about a little bit ago, but they say so short lines instead of long lines.
Maybe. Depends. Yes. So short line instead of long line. So probably when I was working on the long straight lines. But yes, short lines, and I'm not sure exactly what you had in mind, but here's what I think about when you say that and why it's important. Let's say you're sitting here, starting this line, you're like, let's go over here. And then you go all the way down, like, that's perfect. And then you go here, and then you mess up. Okay. You know, and so you could erase that and start over. But one smooth line would just look so much better. So if you want to redo this line, you have to go back and then do that long line again, that some parts were perfect. So let me do short lines. So that way, if I need to go back or undo, it doesn't take away all these other perfect parts of that line. So I will then instead go like this. Take this out. Boom. Stop right there. Go right here. Take this out. Start right there. Stop right there. Then grab this. And go right there. Boom. Stop right there.
Oh, okay.
Then I grab that.
That's interesting. So you break it off at a lot of those big angles.
Yes, you want to, especially because you also you don't want to twist your wrist weird, and you can't sit there and draw, and while you're drawing, start turning the canvas. You can't. I just tried turning the canvas. You can't. So you kind of want to measure yourself, and you'll understand it as you start working on your own pieces and experimenting. It's you'll find out what works for you. You know, maybe you are a machine, and we've called artists. My mentor called this one artist a machine one time because this guy could paint. Oh, and he was constantly painting, like he was all constantly cranking out stuff. And a long time ago, he was painting on shirts. I bought 2 of his shirts. I have them in my closet. And so maybe you are a machine and you can, do fancy things. This is what I found that works for me. So try it out.
Are you able to tell us a little bit more about having a mentor? Like, how long have you had a mentor, and how'd you go about finding one? Was it like an intentional search you were doing, or did it just kind of happen?
It kind of happened. It so you can go about it and be intentional if you want. And there are people who offer mentorship services. I am not recommending that at all. So I don't have anyone that you can just say, hey, let's reach out to. However, the way I got my mentors is by being involved in the community. And of course, it's kind of tough to be out in public in large groups and so on. But I hung out at many different drawing sessions, figure drawings classes, and I never went to college. I didn't go to school. I don't have degrees or certifications. I have my own opinion about school, and so my way to find advice and help has been through being there in person. And so when I heard, and this is in Atlanta many years ago, when I heard that artists got together to draw together, I said, why? Who does that? That's crazy. Because all my life, it was just by myself. My family didn't even want to talk to me. So I'm okay with that by myself. So I said, I need to go see. And so I went to hang out, and it was at a club in Atlanta. It was an actual, well, it's kind of more like a cafe, nightclub lounge. And sure enough, they had DJs spinning on stage, and then artists everywhere drawing, and then they would have models. And so I was like, that's great, because I want to hang out with other artists and watch what they do so I can learn from them. And it was through those situations where I got into conversations, and my artist mentor, I met him there. The first time that I went to just go see, because I had heard that this was happening. I was like, wait a minute, what do you mean? That's strange. So I went to go look, and so I showed up. It was on a Monday. It was called Art Mondays, and I showed up. I was sitting there looking around, and I saw a bunch of all the artists drawing. And so I walked up to an artist, said, "Hey man, let me check out your sketchbook." He looked at me weird and turned around, didn't say nothing to me. I was like, what's going on here? I'm an artist too. And so I went home. I said, what happened? What is that? Why is that? And then I realized, well, I didn't bring any of my art stuff. How they know I'm an artist? What's the proof? So the next week, I brought my sketchbooks with me and my pencils. Like, I'm ready to draw. And so I walked up to the same guy again. I said, hey man, let me check out your sketchbook. Would you want to see mine? And I handed him my sketchbook, and he took it, and he let me look through his. And there was, and that guy became my artist mentor.
Oh, nice.
As time went on. It was through time, conversations, and I didn't ask him to be a mentor. He just started saying things. He's the one who said, hey, you should paint bigger. Hey, if you did this, you could do that. I was like, what? And it's just through listening to others. And something that happens with artists a lot is that, we feel very protective and personal about our work. And if you say something off about my drawing, I'm gonna feel bad, and I don't want to talk to you now. And so that's where, we have to get past that and just listen. And maybe what somebody has something to say, it doesn't mean anything, but if you might come across someone who does have something to say that does mean something to you, you're like, wait a minute, I think I like that idea. And so that's how my relationship with that artist just kind of evolved. Eventually, I was reaching out to him, asking him questions, and he started answering them and telling me things. And I started producing art shows. And I know I'm kind of going way off into storytelling, but I was producing art shows here in Atlanta, and he came to see my shows. And one time I asked him for a coffee, and I said, I want to ask you a couple questions. He came over, we sat down for coffee, and I said, tell me about my show. What did I do right? What could be better? And he told me. And so ever since then, I kind of just like focus on hearing his opinion on stuff. And we need someone, even if it's not an artist mentor, that can guide you through different situations. You should talk to someone, another artist, who can look at your work and say, yes, I like that. Or no, I've seen Sam do such and such with his work. Why don't you try it? And then I go looking through Sam's work. It's like, oh yes, I see what he's talking about. Let me go ahead and try that. You need someone else to talk to, someone else to show your work, someone else to share your work with. So then you kind of get feedback and critiques that help build out your talent and your skill that you don't see because you're used to it. You're kind of used to it.
Yeah. And Wade in chat says, honest critiques are the best tool for growth. Just putting that out there. And I think you said this earlier, but sometimes people will point out things and you'll be like, oh my God, you're right. I didn't even see that before. And that happens to me all the time. So it is really nice to have other people that can kind of get a fresh pair of eyes. Cause sometimes even on stream, I'll be streaming and people will point things out and I'll be like, that seems so obvious now that you said it, but I completely missed that.
Right. Yep. On this design here, I printed out an 8-foot long proof. I had to pay to get a print of what it would be like if it was the final in the same kind of material, but a smaller version. And I had to look at it outside of the screen. I needed another that was outside of the screen. That way, I could see all the little things that maybe I missed, and you won't know you missed it until you have a different point of view on it. And that's how working with others is until someone else puts their eyes on it, you won't know, or no one will tell you. So yeah, it's super important.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm kind of just working through this here. We're doing a lot of talking. For those of you who came to look for Fresco stuff, I'm sorry. We do what we do. And so what I'm doing is kind of making adjustments. And this is where part of the sketch is like, that look cool, but what if I was to fix it? What if I was to try to make it better? Would it look better? And so I'm sitting here playing with it, and let's turn that off. And there it is. And so now it looks like a drawing, but and it has that hand-drawn element to it, but it's still a vector. This is what I really, really love, that it's a vector.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it kind of has the best of both worlds to me.
All right, so let's see. So let's go ahead and open up this right here. Let's go ahead and turn that on and turn off, show you all the different pieces that this took to make. Oh, because like I said, layers are free, and you'll notice this. Now, I do have an iPad Pro M1. I bought this I did buy new. It took some convincing to convince my wife that yes, this is worth it. We should spend $2,000 on it. On an iPad? Yes, but it's a special iPad. and so it is the 1 terabyte. When you buy the 1 terabyte iPad Pro, it comes with 16 gigs of RAM. And I think that if you get any other iPad Pro, it's 8 gigs of RAM. I'm not sure. But basically, the processor and the way it works and functions is more powerful. However, apps only are still limited to a particular, not processor, but performance. And that's because not all iPads are the same, but all apps should work the same on all iPads. So eventually, as time goes on, these apps are going to be more and more powerful because they're going to try to take advantage of your particular iPad. So I bought my iPad in a way where it's kind of future proof. You know, it's not going to last me forever because all things run out of their limit, but it's strong enough that as Fresco gets more and more improvements, Illustrator and Photoshop, this machine is going to be able to handle it. So I throw everything I can at it. I throw it hard. I like, let's go layers. Let's go. So how many layers do I have here? I don't know. I never counted them, but I never found a problem yet, and it has not crashed on me. So I feel I'm pretty safe. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, that's good. It's nice when you don't have to worry about the tool, you know, and you can just do your thing.
Yes. And let me tell you, in the past 2 years, I have been upgrading my devices. Last 2 years ago, I got a new computer, which is what I'm streaming with. Well, it's not new, it was used, but it was new to me. I've been slowly getting more up-to-date devices so that, yes, because for a long time, you do what you can, what you have, and that's cool. But when it crashes, when things break, it's very frustrating, and you're ready to give up drawing altogether. Like, I'm ready to quit. I quit. Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and get this. This needs to get filled in, doesn't it? Let me see. There it is. Boom.
I was working on this big illustration sometime back, and that's when I had to upgrade my CPU and RAM because it was getting to the point where it's like this illustration is just so big. So yeah, you get to that point sometimes, and you're like, got to do it.
And it changes your life, right? Like,
yeah, not having to worry about all that.
Right.
It's great.
Whereas when you're working what you have, I mean, that's all you got, so you do what you can. But there's a certain sense of fear because you're working, and you're just kind of waiting for that flicker. You know, it's like, oh, did I see a flicker? I'm not sure. Let me save it.
Yeah, I've been there. That panicked Control S that I do. It's like,
that's right. God. That's correct.
Please save.
Two fingers. So right now, I'm gonna share with you a technique. Okay. And I don't know who developed it. I don't know who came up with it. I think I did. Maybe somebody else did. I don't know. I saw it somewhere, And so I'm gonna share. So let's go ahead and get rid of all these layers. Boom. So here it is. So I have, so what I did is with the hair, I did one solid layer. And then, I had already started using this technique maybe last year, especially after the layer masking option in Fresco came out. And I did not like it, but I never liked masking. I am not a masking person unless I'm an illustrator, and there's a real reason of why I should do that. But by then I'm an illustrator, and Illustrator and desktop and can handle anything, so it's okay. But one thing I found out is that when you do the masking here in Fresco, what happens is when you export to Illustrator, too many edits on a layer from Fresco on Fresco. When you export to Illustrator, it will Illustrator will show you that layer flat as a raster layer, and not as all the different. It will kind of flatten all those different layers that in Fresco you had all these different options on, and so then you find yourself redoing the work in Illustrator, and I'm like, well, I just wasted time. And so I'm pretty sure there's a reason for that, and somebody who knows the genius behind it is makes sense of it. To me, it was just a lot of extra work. And so what I decided to do is this technique that I started last year and that I really, really perfected during the production of my Scully series, the skulls that are part of my NFT process. And so what I have is I have this layer. So there it is. It's filled in, right? This is a fill layer. I just filled it in. Now, remember, I do have one side that's lighter than the other. So I'll remember that. So turn it on. And now I'm going to duplicate that layer. Now I have an exact copy of the first layer. So the second layer, I'm going to change the blend mode to multiply. All right. So now it just got darker. And I'm going to turn down the opacity halfway somewhere. All right. That's cool. This is the same technique that I use for another part of my process that I call the color. So we'll talk about that. If I forget, somebody remind me. Okay, so I turned down the opacity, so now it has a darker color than the first layer, but not as dark as the second layer, so somewhere in the middle. Got it. Now I get my eraser. And now that I have my eraser, I can go in. And why is it not showing up? Did I do something? There it is. Hey, you're making me look bad here. What's happening? Oh, I didn't get the eraser. There it is. The eraser's right there. I thought I tapped it, but there it is, the eraser. Here we go. And as I erase bits of the second layer, it reveals the first layer. You see that? I don't need masking. Masking is cool. Somebody invented it, and thank you for your service. There's my highlights down below. Just like that. You see that? That's crazy. I don't know. I get excited about it. Let me do some more. Maybe you're not convinced. You're like, then that's all right.
No, it's always super exciting when you find a kind of a new element to your workflow, or you refine an existing one.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of either makes everything easier and look better or faster, but I definitely know that excitement.
Yes. And so now I'm sitting here erasing some parts of that second layer, and all of a sudden I'm starting to add highlights. Okay, I'm starting to add highlights. So let me turn that off and turn this off, and let me show you what really happened. Turn that on. So here's the second layer. All right, 1, 2. Turn up the opacity so you can see the real dramatic difference between the first and the second. So this first layer is that light blue. The second layer is that dark blue. And I like to use multiply in colors. And I guess I can mention that for a second. And that instead of going in and changing the color or adding a layer that's a darker color of the original blue, I can just make any dark color my second layer and move the opacity to give me that shade that I want. So here it is somewhere in the middle. Then I grab that layer and I duplicate it again. So now I have a third version of the original layer. And let's turn it on. And so now I have that. And it's through the slow erasing of that third layer that now helps you show a bit of that second layer and the bottom layer. Slowly erase away, and I get the same effect as if you had if I had a second blue color, and I was using masking and recoloring over part of that original layer. So let's go ahead and clean this up right here. Looks a little scraggly. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, you get some nice form with those 3 values.
That's right. And that to me is my way of using vectors to do what Sam does with his artwork. Sam has this cool, nice gradients, and the metal and the armor of your characters looks so smooth and cool and real and textured. And so I can't do all that in vector. And so what I do instead is I layer the layers. I stack the layers in a way so that it gives me the values that I want, so that it gives me that depth. Boom. So there's that right there. Got it.
Dari in chat says, I do this all the time thanks to DTM, or thanks DTM.
There you go. Thank you, Dari. You're welcome. Yes, we've been doing that in my live streams for a while now. I share this method all the time. Then I did a group with highlights. So there it is right there, the highlights. So I can still do highlights if I wanted to. My technique involves a lot of shadow layers, a lot of highlight layers, so that I can get those values to really pop the artwork out and give it that look that that's similar to what pixel artists do. Bam. So there's that. Next thing on the list, let's see what this is another outline. So here's the outline, and this is where I'm going to talk about the color. So I have a layer for that purple outline. So I use purple, brown, even dark red as my line work. I don't use black as much because I admire other artists and they use these colors, so I want to do it too. And it looks really good. The art looks a little bit not so comic like, which is comics is fine, and I go for that comic look, but it has more of a live look to the drawing. So there's the purple. That's the line work. Let me go ahead and get the purple. Is that the purple right there? Oh, that's the eraser. Oh, that's not the same purple. Is this one? There it is. Cool. So I use the purple to make my lines on and on and on. Got it. I go ahead and let's say this purple is too light. I want it darker. In vector brushes, vector layers, you can use the paint bucket, get a different color, and say, I'm going to use the paint bucket and tap that. Boom. So now everything turned darker color. But now I have to go all in here, all these individual pieces, and fill it in with color. I could also wait to export this to Illustrator. And in Illustrator, I just select that layer and boom, one tap, change the color, everything in that layer, and I'm good, which is one of the reasons why you want to separate your color layers when you're working. Because in Illustrator, it's a tap of a button, boom. In Photoshop, you can do the transparency layer setting so that you can recolor anything you want. But in Illustrator, bam, one snap. So here it is. I have this color. I want a darker color. So instead of repainting or recoloring, what I do is I duplicate that layer. Duplicate. Where are you? Thank you. Now I have a second copy of that first copy of the first layer with the line work. Go into my blend modes, and again, I will multiply. And if it's too dark, I can turn it down, and that's my new color. Do not go through trying to find the right color combination. Like, is this color? Is it that color? I mean, you can do that if you want to. Like I said, experimentation is one thing, but when you have a deadline and you have a lot of ground to cover, you find your shortcuts and say, you know what? I'm not going to bother with this here. I'll just duplicate that layer. And then I turn it to multiply. And then I turn the opacity. So there's very low. There's very high, and I look for that happy spot that I want it to be.
Yeah,
Okay.
this kind of stuff I think it's always so much easier when you have like that layer organization going on that you can really refine these types of things, save time.
Yeah, and this is the toughest part to learn in your creative process. Organize, stay organized.
Yeah. I mean, you should see some of my Photoshop documents from, man, I don't know how many years ago at this point, but from quite a few years ago. It's a nightmare compared to what I have now, and it makes a big difference.
Yep. it's same with me, you know.
Yeah.
And you learn these lessons the hard way because you know, you do what you do, you have fun with it, and then the client says, "Oh yeah, can you change this? Can you edit that?" Yep. And then you're like, "What?" And you
Yeah, I think it first happened for me when like I would have literally, it'd say like layer 125, 126, and it was just chaos. And then I did work for this one company where I would need to pass my files off to them. So then I was like, well, I don't want them to see that. It's like seeing my messy room. So I kind of had to develop a better system.
There you go. Yep. Yeah. It's that. So it is, and it's through those situations that the next time you start a new drawing, you start thinking like, well, in case this situation comes up, in case I need to make changes, in case I need to edit, let me find a way to organize these layers. So in the last bit of the time we have left, I'm going to turn on these layers little by little. There goes that headdress back there in that layer. There goes another layer copy of that headdress. Let's start from the very back here. I had a background for my halo, then a whole group of layers there for these are stars and craters. So let me turn that off and show you this way. Let me see. Maybe this is where Sam was just saying that the layers are everywhere. So this is some shadow right there. And as a matter of fact, let's turn off this. Is it that? Where is this? Right there. Here it is. That way. That way we can see. Boom. So let's go back there. Oh, come on. My tapping. There it is. That's the background. Some craters. And this layers are opacity on multiply. So it's very low opacity. Blend mode is a multiply and very low opacity. So it's playing around with these layers. There goes the orange. That's all that's in that layer. There goes the skin tone. And again, if I wanted a darker or lighter skin tone, instead of recoloring that layer, I just add a new layer and boom. And this one I actually did the technique where I erased away some of the pieces. See?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And of course, that's crazy looking. There it goes, nice and smooth. A little bit of smoothness.
Yeah.
You know.
You can dial it in right where you want it.
Exactly. There go the eyes. There goes the part of the snakes on her head. This is the moon goddess. There goes some green for the headdress. And even that green has two layers. Has the light green and the dark green. I go layers crazy. And there goes the tattoos on her body. There goes the blue for what she's wearing and for the headdress. And again, two layers in there to make it lighter and darker. Take away add some of the detail by taking away some of the original layer that are duplicated. There goes some white highlights. There goes the moons, because she's the moon goddess. I wanted to have the moon cycle around her halo. And then there's the moon details. And it's not a perfect moon. It's not a anatomically correct moon, but I want to have creative license with it. Now,
yeah, it looks great.
Thank you. The stars in the background, I use my finger, tap. I turn on the touch because I turn off all touch only for canvas stuff, and I draw with the pen. But sometimes I will go ahead and use my finger and tap, make circles. In the Aztek story, where it tells the story of the moon goddess, these are her brother and sisters. And and they line up. They are the stars in the sky. All right.
Awesome. Well, I think this might be a good spot to wrap it up.
Cool.
I just want to say thanks for joining us, of course, DeltaTangoMike. And what are we going to be working on tomorrow?
So tomorrow we have all the elements together, all in their spots where they belong, and then we export to Illustrator. When we export to Illustrator, we don't necessarily export all of the pieces together. We export them little by little, because in Illustrator is where I have another document that I can start moving things around. And so it'll be part of Illustrator, part of Fresco, and mostly Illustrator, where I show the rest of my process. And then I show you my proof banner that's 8 foot long. I'm gonna hold it up here like this.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Definitely check out DeltaTangoMike online, everyone. Check out his social media. We will be back tomorrow with another stream, so definitely join us again. Huge thanks for everyone for being here. I want to remind you that we have the Illustrator Creative Challenge coming up next with Andrew Hockrattle, and we have 2 new series today with Graphic Glow Up with Voodoo Val and How To with Cloudy, so definitely check those out. DeltaTangoMike, thanks again for joining us. This was great.
Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay here on Behance, where there's lots of programming left to do today.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.